news, current affairs, facts and opinion. Their future in our hands. Markets, globalist technocrats versus the people. A line in the sand. The McIntyre Report.
And welcome back, folks. McIntyre Report, Jamie McIntyre reporting live from Australia. Australian National Review, independent media, ANR.newsfire, 24-hour news headlines. What's happening? Iran-Israel war continues. Meant to be a short war, they promised. Originally, it was about regime change, they said. And then obviously Trump said that's not about regime change. It's about opening the Strait of Hormuz, which is kind of weird, absurd, because the Strait of Hormuz was open before Israel and America decided to start bombing Iran for no valid reason. Oh, that's right. It's about nuclear weapons. Only 2 weeks away. The same line Netanyahu told us. For how long? They've been 2 weeks away for how long? Oh, weapons of mass destruction. Remember those? Some of you are old enough to remember. Once again, Netanyahu lying to Congress, lying to the Australian Prime Minister and the UK Prime Minister, Tony Blair, and Australian Prime Minister John Howard, that Iraq really did have these weapons of mass destruction. We must wipe them out to protect ourselves. Now it's like, we must nuke Iran or take off the nuclear weapons that Iran doesn't have, but Israel's allowed to keep theirs, right? The only country with the Samson option, the only country psychopathic enough and satanic enough that they would nuke other countries and have threatened to do that if their very survival is threatened. Well, right now their very survival is threatened. The Iron Dome just doesn't seem to be working. I wonder why.
Let's take a look at why the Iron Dome failed to intercept the Iranian ballistic missiles. Apart from discussing the multi-layered missile defense system, the Iron Dome itself has a range of around 40 miles, while the David's sling can intercept ballistic missiles up to a range of 180 miles. The top-tier Arrow anti-ballistic missile systems can target threats up to 1,500 miles away. According to reports, 180 ballistic missiles, which are possibly hypersonic as claimed by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, were launched. Although the Arrow missile defense system successfully intercepted many missiles before they reached Israel, many still got through. The main problem behind the failure to intercept was after the detachment of the glide vehicle from the launcher. The glide vehicle can change its trajectory multiple times, which confused the Arrow missiles. This maneuver also bypassed the David's sling and finally the Iron Dome system, which is not designed to counter hypersonic missiles like the Fata 2 model.
So here you have it. We warned people up front. What we told people, just like we said very clearly here at Australian National Review, right up front, Israel and America will lose this war. Iran will win. And right now, you can categorically, if you know what's going on, Iran is winning this war, and it will win. How do we know this? How did we know to tell our readers to buy Bitcoin at $75 US? How do we tell them to buy gold when it was as little as 300 an ounce in the late 90s? That'll go up to thousands and thousands of dollars an ounce. And how do we tell people when Bitcoin got to 110,000, you should sell, take some profits? How do we tell people to profit from real estate in Australia for the last 25 years? How do we predict the bottom of the US property market? How do we know these things? Is it because we have a crystal ball? We're financial geniuses, or is it something much simpler? And I've highlighted many times on the McIntyre Report. It's very simple. If you want to know who's going to win a war, if you want to know what's going to happen in the world, whatever the Western media, mainstream media, which isn't media, the Chinese always bemused. They know in China their news is propaganda. But they're bemused, why do us Westerners think our news is anything other than propaganda? But the mistake most people make, they think CNN or Channel 7, 9, 10 or Sky News in UK or Australia is news. It's propaganda. Murdoch owns half the media in Australia and the UK and Fox News in America. Murdoch is also a Zionist, pro-Israel, pro-war. If you're pro-Israel, you have to be pro-war, right? Of course, it's not if your children are going to fight the war, but you're stand with Israel. But how many people actually go and die for Israel? None of them want to. So it's easy to stand for something when you don't have to do anything about it. Murdoch is a Zionist. He's the number 2 donor for Netanyahu. He loves war. It makes him money. So the other half of media in Australia is owned by the globalist left, the George Soros types, and they just push wokeness and more BS. The two factions hate each other, and they're fighting to compete to who gets to run a one world government out of Jerusalem, the Great Israel Project. But many know Israel is going to fall already. That's why they started the war in Ukraine. The Rothschilds, yes, that's a banking family. It's not just a conspiracy theory. They did start the banks. They're a major banking family. And they also boast of founding Israel, claim that they're Jewish. But if you study the history, the Khazarians, they're fake Jews who learned a great skill of doing nothing else in life other than printing fake money when they got control of the Federal Reserve, 1913, with their business partners, J.P. Morgan. Certain ships sunk on the way to America. Won't mention the Titanic. Wiped out their competitors, but that's just a conspiracy, right? Because conspiracy theories never come true. The word conspiracy theory is nothing other than invented by the CIA to cover up for Americans figuring out that maybe someone assassinated JFK other than the patsy. Just like many are figuring out, maybe, just maybe, someone else assassinated Charlie Kirk other than Tyler Robinson, the obvious patsy. I just wonder who does these assassinations. I just wonder if the same fake state created by fake Jewish people that print fake money, banking cartel, banker wanker family, maybe behind the JFK assassination and Charlie Kirk. I just wonder, what are the chances? Well, I don't gamble, and I could bet I know who did it. And we do make money bets here at Australian National Review because we have certainty. I often say to people, put up or shut up, and often they won't. We'll put up $1 million. We told you right up front, October 7th was a false flag. $1 million. Anyone wants to debate that? We put it up within 24 hours after doing some basic research to 10 million because knew Netanyahu was behind October 7th. We also warned you that he will get caught later and exposed for shuffling millions, or actually more than that, ends up being billions of cash to Hamas. And they also funded, with the help of the CIA, and Mossad carries the CIA, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, etc. They create Islamic terrorism. They do Bali bombings. They do bombings around the world. They shoot people up, even on famous beaches all the way in Australia, and blame Iran. Like, why would Iran want to shoot innocent Aussies on a beach in Australia? Or Christchurch massacre, or Port Arthur? Why would they? They don't. But we know one nation that does. Love terrorist exercises and massacres. We do, don't we? That would be that fake state created in 1948 that claims it's biblical, claims that God chose them. Strange for God to choose the very people who just had Easter. Jesus Christ was crucified by these very people. So I'm pretty sure he's probably not going to choose them to represent him here on earth. But some people still fall for that, folks. But the bottom line is, Iran's going to win. Why? A couple of reasons. It can produce weapons at 1/20th the price of the greedy Western military complex, which is run pretty much by the same group of banker wankers. That's why we predicted Russia would win the war as well. They can produce weapons 1/20th the price, as can China and North Korea. So what we're seeing is all wars are pretty much banker wars, folks. And banker wars are about who gets to issue the currency. Since World War II, pretty much when it come off the gold standard, US has been able to, not the US people, but the people that control the Federal Reserve, which is not federal and has no reserves, the same banker wanker families that I've been telling you about, been able to print counterfeit money and get away with it. Why can they get away with it? Because, well, if Zimbabwe or Indonesia or any other country was just to print endless amounts of money, they create rampant inflation and devalue the money. Can't do that. But what if your country is the global reserve currency, such as the United States of America? Then these banker wanker cartels can print endless money without any reserves, not gold backed or backed by anything, or lend it to your government, and invent a thing called income tax, because then they can ensure that you are taxed on half your productivity almost and have to pay back real money for the fake money that they print with no assets. And people figured out this scam, and that's why the rise of the BRICS. And now the BRICS, this is what this war is about. Iran is part of the BRICS, Russia, China, and many other countries now. The majority of the world's GDP, and the majority of the world's population, and it's growing. Same thing what Australia should do. I've advocated it should join the BRICS. It should have, BRICS want a multipolar world. They don't want a world run out of Jerusalem where your little goyim are slaves. They want a world where your nation has a leader that's nationalist, like a Putin. Whether you like Putin or not, in the West, we're told to hate Putin. But why? The Rothschilds tell us to hate Putin, so we should listen to their media, their propaganda, or should we maybe think for ourselves? No leader is perfect, no country is. But hard to argue that Putin isn't a nationalist leader. It's hard to argue that he doesn't have a very large majority of support in Russia. It's hard to argue that he's not a very popular president. It's hard to argue he hasn't restored the wealth and pride and respect of Russia after he kicked out the oligarchs and kicked out the Rothschilds banking system 25, 26 years ago. Remember? The Rothschilds had taken over 100 years ago Russia and turned it into a communist state and plundered it and murdered 30 to 60 million Christians in a real Holocaust. Not one of their fabricated ones, but a real one. And they've been pretty good at doing real ones and then lying to you about it. You know, a recent one you saw on social media, such as bombing kids to death in Gaza, where you can witness an independent proof right in front of your eyes, and they will tell you it's not a genocide. And you're going to believe those people when they claim 6 million of their people were killed by an evil man in World War II without fact-checking. See, that's the problem these days. People like to fact-check. Don't fact-check. Or they fact-check, they go and check CNN. If CNN or Snopes doesn't tell you it's true, it mustn't be true. So fake news media, propaganda, Western propaganda media, fact-checks itself and tells you whether it's true or not, and some people believe it. Whatever your reference is back to fake news as your reference point for your source of truth, then you're clearly not going to be able to predict the future. You would have clearly had friends that fell for it that Ukraine was going to win the unprovoked invasion by Russia. Was it really unprovoked? Of course, Ukraine's not going to win that war. Despite NATO against Russia, Russia is winning methodically and systematically because they play for a long war. And as I said, 1/20th the cost of price for weapons. And Russia is becoming richer. And now because the Iran or Israel issue is becoming extremely rich because it's a major oil exporter in the world and fertilizer. They're a big country, proud Christian nation. Australia should have good relations. Why are we having good relations and sending weapons to Ukraine, a satanic Jewish-led state that's designed to become Israel too, until Putin put an end to that? Now they're desperately looking to take over parts of Argentina and no doubt where else, but even possibly Paraguay. But no one wants them. They're trying to buy islands in Cyprus, areas in Cyprus, but they don't. Cyprus doesn't want them. Now they're trying to buy islands in Greece. But I don't think anyone wants these people. Now, if you think it's our problem if we criticize this fake state and we're anti-Semitic for criticizing dropping bombs on children, is it really us that's a problem in the world? Or is it those that are supporting and dropping bombs on innocent civilians? I'm just going to ask that. Now, if you're an independent thinker and watch independent news such as this, of course, you would know that there is nothing wrong with legitimately criticizing Israel when it does things that are wrong, like having America working together and sending 3 missiles in to a girls' school, killing over 200 young girls at school. I mean, if they did that to your local school, would you go, oh, no, that's okay. They're the right to self-defense. Would you say that it was your daughter blown to pieces? I doubt it. Why do we tolerate this nonsense by Israel? Netanyahu just had a go at China for not introducing a law to ban the criticism of Israel. Netanyahu, I'm sorry, you're a loser and you're a war criminal, and no, your support level is only 27% even in Israel. You've lost this war and you've destroyed your state. It's predictable what was going to happen if you attack Iran. Iran is going to wipe you out. And right now, what they don't show you on Western media is that Iran's being annihilated, that military bases in the Middle East, 13 of them been eliminated, pretty much destroyed. And they're shooting down F-35s, and 36 aircraft have been shot down in 39 days. U.S. aircraft, USS Ford, apparently had a laundry fire, but got hit by Iranian missiles that tried to hide that for a bit, then they had to admit it. And the other one went scooting away, shit scared of Iran. Iran is winning this war, and it will win. The only chance that Israel has is nuking Tehran. Are we going to tolerate that, allow that to happen? Russia and China have warned categorically, if they do dare nuke Iran, there will be no more state of Israel. That's what China said recently. Russia said they will nuke Israel if it dare does that. So who's the threat to humanity? Who's the only country with a Samson option, meaning that if they're threatened, they can nuke other people? Who actually invented the atomic bomb? Who actually was controlling U.S. foreign policy in World War II when they dropped the bombs, atomic bombs, on Nagasaki and Hiroshima? I just wonder who that was. If it wasn't Israel, you want to know if there's any fucker in the world, take a guess. It's going to be Israel. Does that mean I'm anti-Semitic for criticizing Israel? Hardly. I'm Scottish heritage. I live in, grew up in Australia. I don't live in Australia anymore. If the Scottish government was dropping bombs in Gaza on innocent people, and if someone criticized that government, would I say, oh, my feelings are hurt, I've got Scottish heritage? How dare you? That's anti-Scottish. What a load of bullshit that people tolerate this nonsense. Anyhow, trolling. Maybe some of us don't want the Iran war to end yet because we're just enjoying.
Yeah, you blew the bridge. Posted the video proud. Power plants next. Stone Age talk out loud. Watch this. What? War crime. War crime. War crime. War crime. Bridge down, civilians cry. Trump on truth, social flexing while they die. Power plants next, blackouts in the night. Stone Age threat. Great Persia still shines bright. You split the brick, we split the bridge in flames. Smoke filling up the sky, posted the video laughing, showing off your strike, threatening power plants, trying to turn off all the lights, dragging us to Stone Age with your illegal might. But Great Persia rises, history on our side, ancient empire strong, we never hide. True social warrior, keyboard criminal, every strike you drop, we multiply the missile. War crime, war crime, war crime, war crime. Bridge down, civilians cry. Trump on truth, social flexing while they die. Power plants next, blackouts in the night. Stone Age threat. Great Persia still shines bright. Sacred defense. We own the fight. War crime. Yeah.
Well, trolling Iran is not only winning the war military, they're also winning the war on the hearts and mind of people. There's some amazing videos coming out trolling Trump and Netanyahu. Let's go for a quick ad break. We'll be back in just a moment.
The McIntyre Report.
And welcome back, folks. Australian National Review, independent media out of Australia. Follow our 24-hour news headlines, ANR.news. You can also follow me on Twitter, Jamie McIntyre21. Let's look at what's going on in the world. Also, fuel prices in Australia. Yesterday, I went to fill up with some fuel in country regional area and sold out. Diesel, unleaded, and premium all sold out. Now, that's not the case everywhere. But Australia, even the UK news, let's take a look at this, highlighting Australia as one of the, it's actually winning the record for the least fuel reserves in the world. And it's also the most vulnerable because it's at the end of the supply chain. Australia used to have 9 refineries in 2002. It's now down to 2. And one of them has been turned into an import terminal. They simply have down to 1. We're 90% of our fuels we have to import. Only 10% we can produce. How did a country that's meant to be sovereign, nationalists, give away its ability to even fuel itself?
Part of the explanation is the fact that various different countries around the world, in order to kind of be safe and secure, they tend to build up big stockpiles of things like kerosene and diesel and petrol. But the UK doesn't really do that. So this is showing you the higher the bars are, and it's countries all around the developed world, the higher the bars are, the more months of stockpiles these countries have of kerosene, so they can survive, in the case of Japan, 27 months just on their stockpiles, replace the imports with stockpiles. That's Japan over there, lots of stockpiles. Where's the UK? Well, we have to walk all the way over here. And there's Britain, 1 month. 1 month worth of stocks in the UK. It's actually 1.1 months, but nonetheless, a tiny, tiny fraction of safety measures in the UK. And, it comes back to this chart that I showed you, a kind of version of this chart the other day, that due to just the quirks of refining, the refining sector, we're quite self-sufficient when it comes to petrol. It's part of why petrol prices haven't gone up quite so much. We're not. We used to be quite self-sufficient when it came to diesel. And all this chart's showing you that if the line is in the blue area, we're producing more than 100% of what we need, basically. We used to be self-sufficient for diesel, and now we're not. But for kerosene, we've kind of always been dependent on imports. And part of the reason why ships like the Yasahor are kind of waiting for that phone call from the broker, taking them to London, is because they know that London is one of the most exposed places, particularly I say London because Heathrow is the biggest airport, but nonetheless, the UK is one of the most exposed anywhere in the world when it comes to the price of jet fuel, and so we're willing, it seems, to pay the price. Now, I mentioned diesel, and I showed you that chart for kerosene a moment ago. Worth just asking the question, is it the same for diesel? Do we not have as many stocks when it comes to diesel? Well, I'm afraid the answer is kind of yes. Japan, 23 months worth of stocks of diesel, just in case of an emergency. And when I talk about stocks, this is fuel that is stored in refineries and fuel tanks around the country, not the stuff in the petrol forecourts. We'll come to that in a second. But in Japan, they've got 23 months there. The average, by the way, across the developed world, about 7 months. So if you're on around 7 months worth of your stocks, then you're kind of, you're on average. The UK, 1.5 months, 1.5 months. We're not the lowest, actually. Even more exposed is Australia. And that tells you something, doesn't it? Lots of frenzy right now in Australia and concern about what's going on with petrol and diesel there. They are more exposed, but the UK is basically close to the bottom when it comes to the size of our stockpiles versus what we need to import.
Well, there you have a UK and Australia in one of the worst positions. We are in the worst position. We have something like 36 days. It's down to I think 23 days and dropping of fuel reserves. And the government was warned about this for some time, has done nothing really about it, or nothing in time. I mean, I've said recently in an article that if what the issue is, we have globalist-led governments that are represented by foreign interests instead of a nationalist-led government. A nationalist government would go, even if it's not profitable to have refineries, even these refineries can't compete because we have too high labor costs and we don't have the massive refineries of our competitors, we should still subsidize them because it's a national security issue and a national security risk not to be able to produce our own fuel. If China ever wanted to invade us, which they don't, they wouldn't even have to go to war with us. Our Navy would run out of fuel within 2 weeks. We'd be laughing, so I'll just have to wait 2 weeks, make us run around a bit, and be out of fuel. I mean, it's embarrassing. We can't even defend ourselves. We can't even fill up our own cars. How did it get like this? Because I can tell you now, you have globalist puppet leaders, whether it's Liberal, Labour, that are led and influenced by foreign interests, foreign lobbies, and you got to understand which particular foreign state that we've talked about a lot that caused a lot of the fuckery in the world controls Australia, controls the immigration policy in Australia and the UK and most of the West. If you're being flooded by immigrants, excess immigrants, just wonder which country is dropping bombs on excess Muslim nations and then flooding the West with excess Muslims. I just wonder which nation is deliberately doing that, part of the Kalergi plan, to wipe out white people, to make white people minority in England, a predominantly white country. Now they're even going out in the countryside saying the countryside is too white. We must flood it with immigrants and change the tradition and culture of English people. In Australia, the same. White Australia policy was removed in the 70s. And I'm advocating you can't have multiculturalism. But why would Indonesia, China, any other country allowed to go, if we had a secret plan called the Kalergi plan, let's flood India with white people and eradicate the Indians, make them divide to conquer them. I mean, Indians would have every right to defend themselves against that, but no white people. No, you're racist white people. How dare you defend your culture? How dare you defend what's actually created Western civilization? Largely white people, Christians. Now, we can have immigrants and immigration is great for a country and have multiculturalism, but ultimately it should be the Australians getting to choose that. A nationalist leader representing national people go, okay, what sort of quality, what amount of immigration, what quality of immigration, where do we want people come from that might assimilate best with our country? Or do we want to have Israel, who's trying to wipe us out, divide to conquer, control our immigration policy, who want to keep property prices record high because they're the banker wanker state, and what do they sell? Debt. Because when you're busy paying off your debt, you're too busy to tune into shows like this because you focus on material survival than focusing on what's really the truth of the world, what's really going on, and how to predict the future, like what we do here consistently. You're too busy paying Rothschild's banking tax, income tax. So now you're a slave, so half your money is given away. And you're like, Australia, how many Australians or how many English, how many people in the West are now going, I can't even afford to live here. I can't even afford to live here. Is this why many people are fleeing to places like this?
So bye-bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. And them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye, singing.
There you have, like, so many people have already fled the West to places like Bali. Many fled to Dubai, but we now know in Dubai the reality is in Dubai, it's no longer safe. It's in the middle of a war zone, and people are now fleeing Dubai. And guess where they're fleeing? Bali, Indonesia, and then secondary places like Lombok, because Bali is now overcrowded. Many people moving to the next big island, which is Lombok, because that's a lot more space, better roads, and proper planning. This is just a trickle. I predicted this also 3 years ago. I said people should diversify out of the West, out of Australia, whatever. Don't keep all your property in one basket, in one country. Don't keep your money in Western banks, because not all your money in Western banks, because you might just get it told one day in the near future that, sorry, to protect the banks collapsing, we're going to now issue your balance in central bank digital currencies. And which reserve bank of which country is leading the trials on that, if that's not Australia? So is this even engineered? Is this fuel crisis being engineered for the West to introduce lockdowns, to restrict you, to reduce your ability to be able to travel because you won't be able to afford airline tickets anyhow? A lot of airlines will go broke due to this crisis. It's not ending anytime soon. Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz, and they're allowing ships through that don't trade in US dollars, that trade in the Chinese yuan or their own currencies, or even now the euro. The age of the Rothschild's banker wanker cartel printing fake money, lending to the United States government, and now people don't want it because they're exporting inflation around the world. Inflation's out of control because they printed so much for $39 trillion in debt. The US is. And who's it in debt to? You ever asked that? Who does it owe the money to? It owes the money to the banker wanker cartel that prints all the fake money. That's how they buy up your media. When you think it's media, it's Western propaganda. That's how they buy up your politicians to represent their globalist interests and not your nationalist interests. That's how they fool your friends into falling for fake pandemics and taking fake vaccines and trying to post on social media that they did so they impress their fake friends on fake book. That's how the world works. That's why fake people believe in fake news, because they don't know what the truth is. They grew up being fed what they thought was news but didn't realize it was propaganda. And until they realize that and have an awakening, the world will continually be misled into going to die for Israel's banker wars. All wars are pretty much banker wars. But let's not miss out on the Lego. Let's check it out.
Yo, P. Hexes, this one's specially for you. You punk-ass rapist, bitch. Straight from Iran. Tattoo covered clown with that cafe ink on your arm. Think you a crusader? Nah, just a drunk infidel in a fake uniform. Chain to kill all Muslims. Wasted in the hotel lobby. Sexual assault settlement in Monterey. Blocked the door, took a phone, paid her off quiet, cause Me Too was on. Now you secretary? What a joke, bro. Cheated on wives, multiple affairs, kids in the mix, family man, hell no. Handsy with women at Fox, drunk on the job, your own team say, yo, this dude toxic. Couldn't even guard Biden's inauguration, your own military said next. Book called American Crusade, dreaming holy war, but reality check. You just a failed vet, turned TV clown, slipping on your own mess. Trump picked you cause you kissed the ring, but wait, funny part ain't coming. The dude you sucking up to for that secretary gig, Trump himself was Bill Clinton's top cocksucker, giving blue jobs back in the day. Real talk, you out here blowing for access, but he the original BJ queen. You thought our missiles max 2,000 kilometers? Cute, rookie mistake. We hitting the bow, worshiping Epstein Island crew, the ones who
hurt the kids. Revenge for every American soul you and Trump's dirty crew oppressed and did. We taking payback for the girls you broke, the wives you broke, the Muslims you hate. Every victim screaming in the dark. Iran got you on the play. You threw everything at us, all your cards, all your might. We still operating on 10% power, laughing while you fight. We see everything, know every secret, every dirty Epstein link you hide. Where you least expected, in the shadows we ride, and no place to slide. This ain't full force, just a warm up, Persian flow with the wrath. Pete, you done roasted raw. Iran sending this heat, feel the math. Drop the mic, infidel clown, we coming.
Well, if you haven't seen Iran trolling, they're certainly winning the troll race. And certainly you don't know in the West, you watch Western propaganda, but Iran is absolutely annihilating Israel and US military bases. So that's what's going on in the world, but people don't know that. It's always the opposite of what they're telling you. So they're telling you America is winning or the war is going to be over in a few weeks. You know it's not going to be. Fuel prices, though, were somewhat hilarious.
After telling her husband that she wants to go to an expensive place for her birthday on Wednesday, the 42-year-old Jane Hutting's husband is now planning on walking her to their local BP garage on Wednesday.
Well, yes, it's kind of funny, not funny. Expensive night out now is to the service station.
Peter Thiel, the FBI informant and CIA contractor, Elon Musk, the defense contractor and PayPal mafia member with Peter Thiel, close confidant of David Sachs, and J.D. Vance, who brokered the David Sachs fundraiser with Silicon Valley and Trump, mentored by Peter Thiel, mentored by David Frum, who worked for Bill Kristol with Tucker Carlson. Thiel, Musk, and Tucker lobbied Trump to pick Vance, and they said, if you don't, the CIA will kill you. Who's the CIA? Who does the CIA, NSA, FBI, DHS, who do they all contract with? Palantir, founded by Peter Thiel and Alex Karp and Joe Lonsdale, Israel First Jews that after October 7th flew their board to Israel and provided them with facial recognition technology to murder Palestinians. J.D. Vance, who upon becoming the VP nominee in his first interview said, we're going to bomb Iran, who went to the Quincy Institute and said, we need a pro-Israel spin on America first. Tucker, who interviewed Vance 46 times on his show, Vance hired his son. Vance's Rockbridge Network was the spawning point of 1789 Capital, founded by Rebecca Mercer and Claire Monster Chris Buskirk, which gave Tucker $15 million. Rebecca Mercer funded Steve Bannon at Breitbart that spawned Milo Yiannopoulos' career. And Rebecca Mercer hand-selected George Farmer, Candace Owens' husband, to run Parler in 2021. This is why they want me dead. Who's the Fed? Who's the Fed here? Because I brought all the receipts.
Wow. Nick Fuentes, whether you like him or not. Some hard-hitting truths there for people to consider. Let's go quick ad break. We'll be back with some more in just a moment.
McIntyre Report.
And welcome back, folks. McIntyre Report here. Independent media of Australia, Australian National Review, ANR.news. Follow our 24-hour news headlines. Jamie McIntyre 21 on Twitter. I'll be on the Richie and Rogue show in the United Kingdom tomorrow. Tune in for that. That'll be available on YouTube. We'll put it across our platforms. This made me laugh. Take a look at this.
Great job. It is a great honor for you to hear me tell you about the latest war I've ended. I'm stopping wars everywhere. 7 since I began this speech, including the War of the Roses, the War of the Worlds, War for Planet of the Apes, War Horse, World War Z, Star Wars, and the Civil War in America. I'm working on that one in the moment.
It's classic, but take a look at this.
I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. No more wars, no more disruptions. We will have prosperity and we will have peace. Under Trump, we will have no more wars, no more disruptions, and we will have prosperity and peace for all. I am the candidate of peace. I am peace.
Well, promises. Many people were happy to see the Trump revolution. They truly believed him. He was America first, but it turns out, and I saw this firsthand when I was reporting live from Washington a little over 12 months ago at CPAC, Trump and Musk and Millet and are all there. But the only people that had to speak was Zionists, all Zionists. And America first was simply Israeli spin. Let's tell the people America first, but it's really Israel in control. They lied to us. Trump is a Zionist. Trump is funded by the Zionists. Trump is leveraged by the Epstein files. Whether you like it or not, Trump might do some good. You might like Netanyahu, but clearly Netanyahu is his boss. He's scared of being assassinated, which is understandable. Why? Because Israel has a habit of assassinating political figures and presidents of the United States of America. So he has every right to be scared, but you'll also accept he is a Zionist. He'll tell you himself. His daughter has turned to Zionist. I remember when Ivanka Trump, I was going to have speak at headline one of my events, actually in Brisbane, where I'm recording a show today, in Brisbane 2012, when she had to cancel last minute because she was converting to Judaism and just getting married to Jared Kushner, who was also a pro-Zionist. So that's just the reality we have to deal with. Some people still believe in the Trump movement, the Trump culture, that he's saving Israel to last. Well, I wouldn't want to hang your hat on that, and I wouldn't want to think that's the solution to the world, because unfortunately, it was always Israel first, wrapped in MAGA, and MAGA is now dead. Let's take a look at this.
This is the end of something. Voters take a guy from completely outside the political system because they're so frustrated with the system. And now I think we can say that failed.
It truly was revolutionary. He was almost assassinated. There were all of these potential indictments against him. The sheer imagery and idea of somebody like that being able to ascend again to the highest office of the land is insane. You have Doge and you have Kash Patel and Pete Hegseth. These people were seen as revolutionary actors who were going to come in and throw a bomb inside of the system. But then, if you watch the U.S. government do the exact same thing that it did under all these past presidents, your revolution starts to look a lot more like the status quo, which was deeply hated and which you exploited to your great political benefit.
Well, it certainly appears that way.
The Energy Minister has revealed 6 oil ships bound for Australia have been turned back or deferred as our fuel crisis deepens. Tonight, farmers are worried as diesel and fertiliser stocks dry up.
On properties nationwide, there's not enough fuel to get crops in the ground.
With fuel and fertiliser, this is probably one of the most difficult seeding periods we've ever had to approach. Tough.
In the West, wheat, barley and canola farmers are up against it.
We've only got one window. It's a very short window. We can't delay this. When the crop has to go in the ground, it's got to go in the ground.
As Chris Bowen reveals that of the 81 fuel ships due to arrive in April, 6 have been cancelled. Major suppliers in Singapore, South Korea and Malaysia under intense demand. Importers now looking to the United States, Mexico and India.
I think we should be worried about it because Chris Bowen doesn't seem to know what is going on.
The Strait of Hormuz under siege.
I think you should always expect Australians to be concerned when they see oil ships being bombed on their televisions at night.
Iran blocking the passage of 20% of the world's oil.
That's our 20%. That's our fuel.
The federal opposition suggestion: prioritise supply to areas that need it most.
Why aren't they identifying where the shortages are and making sure the fuel that gets there?
The Energy Minister has the power to do that under the Liquid Fuel Emergency Act.
It's never been invoked, ever, not through the first 2 Gulf Wars, COVID. It's not designed to be invoked lightly.
Insisting it's not needed yet. Isabel Mullen, 7 News.
Funded by taxpayers to ensure a fuel security, considering it's a national security risk. Most Australians would be happy for that. Now, considering how much tax they charge on our fuel, that's the least they could do. The least they could do is ensure we produce enough of our own fuel to be self-sufficient. But no. When you have globalist-led leaders, where globalist foreign interests install your leaders, put them in power, then of course you're not going to have national things in the national interest taken care of. Simple things like that. Let's take a look at some national initiatives that would make a difference if we had a nationalist leader in Australia. I'm advocating Australia needs nationalist leaders. You're not going to get that from Liberal or Labor. The illusion of Western democracy is where you get to choose between the blue and red team and you think you're winning. They give you a little bit of choice, a little bit of difference, but they're controlled by globalist powers. Whether it's left faction or right faction Zionists, they control both sides in the West. Israel leads the West. Why? Because the bankers behind it own the West. They printed fake money through the Federal Reserve. They bought up your politicians, bought up your media, bought up the large multinationals, BlackRock, etc., and they dictate to you. So there is no point voting, oh, let's get rid of Albo and we'll put in whoever it is, no one even knows, in Liberal. You're going to get slightly different, but still they're answering to globalist agenda. They're not answering to a national agenda for the Australian people. If you want a real leader like that, you're going to have someone with courage that tells a certain nation and tells Netanyahu to FO. Let's take a look at this.
Queensland, home of the greats, home to the Great Barrier Reef, the world's largest living structure, the Great Dividing Range, a 3,500 kilometre spine of rock, the Great Artesian Basin, one of the largest groundwater reservoirs on Earth. But great has a dual meaning here. We are also home to great floods that wash our topsoil into the sea, great droughts that cripple our food security, and great erosion that scars the landscape. The Great Divide shapes our weather. When winds blow from the east, they hit the Great Divide and rise up. The air cools and it dumps moisture that flows east to sea. When hot winds blow from the west, they slowly make their way up the range, evaporating everything. They sometimes meet at the peak with rising air from the east, forcing the air up to cool and dump moisture at the top of the range. The water then makes its way north to the Gulf of Carpentaria by the Flinders River or south to Lake Eyre. At this very unique point, Hughenden, there lies an opportunity to redirect that water north, south, southwest or east and gain tremendously by controlling flooding, erosion and drought in favour of production. What I am proposing is the Great Billabong Way, a superhighway designed to capture, distribute and bank water in the earth, a rail and road connection from Brisbane to Corimba and an offshore port. But making Queensland great starts with 4 interconnected dams, deep, high recharge dams designed to catch torrential pours and send them where they are needed, whether that be north, south, southwest, or east, capable of holding 2 teraliters that would normally flow to sea. Flinders Dam, Emu Dam, Stall Dam, Gilbert. A 200-kilometre pipeline connects 3 at the same altitude and disperses the water to the 50-metre lower Flinders. From the Flinders Dam, the water can be redirected with short pipelines. There is also an option to provide water to Winton. These dams are deep and cool, and their pipeline reduces evaporation. Their weight will force water into the Artesian Basin. Their benefits on erosion, drought and flooding, immeasurable. Our current rail network runs east to west with no connecting lines. If we increase production, we also must provide the infrastructure and logistics. The Great Billabong Way includes a self-powered 1,200-kilometre electric rail, plus a highway, more water storage, banking and distribution. An offshore man-made port near Katoomba, creating a port-to-port interconnecting superhighway, shortening shipping times to Asia. In central Queensland, evaporation is a major concern. Deep storage is a must. I present the Great Bong. A contoured swale is dug, the excess rock being compacted into a highway. Pipes connect the swale to the Bong and the Bong to town. The Bong, a 2.5-metre hole drilled into the earth till just above sea level, is designed to replenish the Artesian Basin, to retrieve water from the Bong. A cost-effective spark is used to create a bubble that expands in size as it rises, pushing hundreds of metres of water ahead of it. The altitude allows for gravity-fed nighttime irrigation. Nearby, a 150-millimetre hole is drilled 2.8 kilometres deep, providing power for a town at night and an electric train. The Great Billabong Highway is a contoured swale-created superhighway consisting of over 100 billabongs, each providing for a town. Sitting at 400 metres above sea level, the highway runs 200 metres below the nearby dams. It provides a horizontal water distribution network where wells fill in succession. 200 metres of head pressure from nearby dams. A 1,200-kilometre line to connect port to port. 100 billabongs providing water, power and logistics for 100 small towns. An electric rail powered by geothermal and braking technology. The wells remain above sea level. They are placed in the Artesian recharge area to replenish the basin. This proposal is feasible, profitable and a self-sustaining asset. A great project to protect our great assets. Billabong, Hamon, Queensland, build a bong.
Yeah, so initiatives like this, they have to be cost model and see if they'll work. But that's what we need. Creative minds, Australians coming up with ideas that can make Australia great, make it more self-sustaining. Water is precious. A lot of water goes out to waste in the Gulf of Carpentaria, where it could be feeding a lot more people. We could be the food bowl for Asia, amongst many other things. But that requires nationalist leaders. What the BRICS wants, they're a multipolar world. But if we continue to support the banker wankers that founded or boast they founded Israel, which is true, the Balfour Declaration, dear Lord Rothschilds, and continue to allow these globalist interests to dictate Australia's interests through the control of our political class and through the control of our news media, then we'll continue to be a country not run by Australians. That's all we have in time for this episode. We'll be back with some more next week on the McIntyre Report.